Hello everyone, this is Adicon Podfic, back another podfic. Today I'll be reading The Mist Protects by Tea Party Canon, and this will be Chapter 4, Mist Breathing. Tokito, I was told you wished to begin training as a demon slayer. Kyoto's voice was booming as always. Yuichiro turned away from the game of shogi he was playing with his brother. Somehow, despite seeming to have regressed in maturity, Yuichiro's skill at the game was as sharp as ever. Yuichiro didn't consider himself a sore loser, but he was still losing, so a part of him was grateful for the interruption. Ah, I see you two have changed clothes. Wonderful. Yuichiro shrugged. Indeed, when he first came to this room, he'd found two sets of clothes laid out for him and his brother. Yuichiro himself was wearing a dark blue samui kimono with loose black pants and socks, while Yuichiro wore a similar outfit consisting of a pale blue kimono with white pants and socks. Both kimonos were also adorned with the same mist patterns as their old yukatas, making Yuichiro question when exactly these were prepared for them. Had the master or Amane always expecting them to come here eventually? Still, the older twin had to admit that these clothes were much softer and comfier than their yukatas. The bandages around Yuichiro's chest had also been freshly changed as soon as he'd completed his talk with the master, so he was quite comfortable now and in a relatively good mood. Yes, they're, nice, he finished lamely. He really wasn't used to this much hospitality from people he barely knew. I am glad you like them, Kyojuro said. And on the subject of training, I would be happy to take you on as my Sugako if you wish. Sugako? Yuichiro tilted his head, Muichiro mimicking the movement. A Sugako is one who trains under Hasho with the intent of taking up the position someday. However, it is by no means an easy task. To be a demon slayer, one must train to their utmost limits. Demons are strong, fast, and unpredictable. You must never underestimate them. Train hard, master breathing style, and total concentration breathing, and it had been a long day, and Yuichiro was too tired for this. His good mood was souring, just listening to the man's booming voice go on and on was giving him a headache. He tried to find a moment to interject between his speech, but Kyojuro kept talking without taking a single breath. What was this man's lung capacity? He wasn't even looking at him at this point, just yelling at the air. This guy's seriously a weirdo. Finally, Kyojuro turned to address him directly. Young Tokito, have you ever wielded a sword before? Yuichiro shook his head. I see! In that case, we should determine what breathing style would suit you best. Each is different, and it's important to find the one best suited for your body. For example, as the Flame Hashira, I use the flame breathing style. As my Sugako, it would be best if you could learn this style as well. Yuichiro was silent as he considered this. Could he be suited to flame breathing? He supposed there was only one way to find out, though he wasn't sure he even wanted to be Kyojuro Sugako in the first place. He wondered if any of those other Hashira would make good teachers. No, Kyojuro was really his best option, wasn't he? Damn it. Ah, but we should really start with the basics of sword training before we move on to breathing. Come, Tokito, let's take this outside. Huh? Okay. He was really too tired for this, but it seemed he had no way out. He turned to his brother. Mui, stay here. I'll be back soon. With that, he followed Kyojuro out of the room to begin their training. Mui was bored as he watched Yui speak to the fiery-haired owl man. Normally he was content to sit and let Yui make decisions for him, but here in this new place he felt strangely antsy. Mist crept in at the edges of his vision, and he blinked to clear it. It seemed like Yui and the owl man would be here for a while. He needed to move. Where could he go, though? He had a feeling that even though the sick human, Master, was his name Master, approved of him, most humans would still be scared of a demon wandering alone, so he couldn't go anywhere where there would be people. Where was the place where people wouldn't be? Well, it was nighttime. Maybe most humans would be asleep. Come, Tokito, let's take this outside. Huh? Take what outside? Mui felt like he had missed something. Huh? Okay. Yui turned to him with an uncertain look and pointed at the floor. Mui, stay here. I'll be back soon. Mui nodded, having no intention of listening. He watched Yui and the owl man leave the room, the sliding door shutting behind them and leaving him in empty silence. Mui frowned. With Yui out of sight, the usual hollowness ate his mind and stomach. His heart beat faster, and the mist crept into his vision again. He needed to move. The hallway was silent as Mui opened the door and looked around. Cautiously, he crept out, only to freeze as the floorboard creaked beneath him. The floor was well maintained, so to humans the noise was probably unnoticeable, but to his demon hearing it was loud as a scream. Mui furrowed his brow and took another step. Wisps of white rose from his feet as he touched the ground, not making the slightest sound this time. Satisfied, he moved around the manor slowly, senses on high alert for any approaching humans. Luck was on his side, though, and no one came his way. Eventually, Mui came to an open door and peeked in, eyes going the slightest bit wide at the rows of shelves filled with books. Creeping inside, there seemed to be no one around, so he stood up and walked freely. Mui browsed the rows of books, clawed hand reaching towards them, but stopping just short out of concern he'd damaged them. There was a mix of old and new-looking books, but he found himself struggling to read most of the titles, the kanji too complex for him. But after a few minutes of searching, he came across some books with very simple titles: Flame, Water, Wind. He wondered what they referred to. Curious, he pulled one out with utmost caution. These were old, worn books, and he really was worried his claws would catch on them. He flipped to a random page and found what seemed to be instructions for sword techniques, complete with illustrations. Hadn't the owl man said something about breathing? He couldn't remember. But when he looked at the shelf again, something caught his eye, one with the kanji for mist. On its spine stood out to him, and he pulled it out a little quickly. Thankfully not tearing it. A familiar design adorned the cover, though it took him a moment to place it, until his eyes wandered to the kimono he wore, the same design repeated throughout. Something resembling excitement rose up within him upon realizing the connection. A barely perceptible smile adorned Mui's face as he sat down and opened the book. The words were still hard to understand, but it was the pictures that drew his interest the most anyway. "Oh, I didn't see you there. Can I help you?" Mui froze. He was so engrossed that he had failed to notice the human who entered the room and walked right up behind him. He turned around and looked up at the woman, in some uniform he didn't recognize. Just for a second, their eyes met. The woman screamed. Mui jumped and leapt to the top of the bookshelf, the missed book still clutched in his hand. "Sorry!" he shouted as he ran along the shelf and jumped down behind her, sprinting out of the door as fast as he could. Sorry! Yui was not going to be happy about this. Yuichiro coughed. His lungs ached. His whole body ached. How was he in this much pain just from trying to breathe properly? At first, his training had just been swinging a wooden training sword for an hour. While it was certainly tiring, it wasn't painful. In fact, it felt shockingly natural to his body. Then Kyodro tried to teach him about breathing. This whole total concentration breathing concept made little sense to him. Just breathing a certain way could make you as strong as a demon. He pulled it off once, and had almost immediately gone into a coughing fit, and the Flame Hashira said he would be expected to do this at all times as a demon slayer. Were these people insane? The claw wounds really weren't helping either, stinging every time his chest teased from the strain of breathing. He recalled that Kyodro had said something about the insect Hashira, Shinobu, being skilled with medicine. He'd have to try asking her if she had anything that could dull the pain. The young boy tried to compose himself as he stood in front of the sliding screen door to his and Muichiro's room. He could see a moving silhouette behind it as he pushed the screen aside. It seemed his brother was up and— "What are you doing?" Yuichiro took in the scene before him of his younger twin wielding a large stick and swinging it down in an arc over and over again. He seemed focused, though it was hard to tell since his eyes were as hazy as ever. Upon hearing Yuichiro's voice, however, he stopped and turned, the stick falling to his side. After a moment of silence, Muichiro raised the stick triumphantly in the air, his mask still blank. "Sword training!" "Mui, that's a stick." "Sword training!" He shook his head and repeated himself insistently. "Where did you even get that? Did you go outside?" Really, right after Yuichiro had told him to stay put. What if someone saw him out alone? Muichiro's silence was a dead giveaway. He was clammed up when he was guilty of doing something bad. That at least hadn't changed when he became a demon. "No one saw you, right?" Muichiro shook his head. Yuichiro sighed. He really couldn't blame his brother for getting bored, left alone as much as he was. "Fine, it's no big deal then. Just tell me if you're gonna go somewhere, please." Muichiro nodded enthusiastically. Or at least it seemed that way to Yuichiro. He liked to think he was getting better at reading his demon twin's emotions behind his stoic outer shell. He watched as Muichiro went back to his training position, his feet with the stick grasped tightly before thrusting forward at an upward angle. He frowned, pulled the stick back, and adjusted his stance a little, then stabbed again. This time Yuichiro thought he saw a wisp of fog around the stick's tip. "Hey, is that a breathing form? Where'd you learn how to do that?" Yuichiro asked accusingly. His brother's movements were too deliberate to be something thought up on the spot. Kyodro had shown off something similar. One of his own flame-breathing techniques. Yuichiro had been in awe of the flames roaring from the blade. Not really there, but confounding his eyes at the same. Muichiro didn't respond. He stayed absolutely still and expressionless. Yuichiro looked around the sparse room, and then his eyes fell on the basket, open with the lid lying next to it. "Mui, what did you do?" Again, silence. Yuichiro narrowed his eyes as he moved towards the basket. Muichiro moved in the blink of an eye, putting himself between his brother and the basket with outstretched arms. "Don't get mad!" "I'm not getting mad." "You are!" Muichiro opened and closed his mouth. Damn it, he was right. He took a deep breath and unclenched his fists. He didn't even realize he'd been clenching. "I'm not gonna get mad, Mui. Just be honest." Gods, he sounded like Mother. Muichiro looked aside nervously, then turned around and crouched to pull something out of the basket. He turned back with an odd book in his claws and held it out to his twin. "Mist breathing." "Mist breathing," Yuichiro repeated. The book did indeed bear the same mist design as their kimonos. Maybe that's why Muichiro took interest in it. He opened it up to find what seemed to be a journal giving detailed instructions of mist breathing forms. The kanji was a bit beyond his reading level, at least without a dictionary, but the pictures were detailed enough to make up for it. "Where did you get this?" he asked. Muichiro frowned and bowed his head. He pointed towards the open door behind Yuichiro. "Went out there." Damn it, why did his brother never listen to him? But Yuichiro promised not to get mad, so he held his tongue. "Fine, it's fine, so long as no one saw you. No one saw you, right?" "Sorry, Mui. Sorry, Yui." "Mui, you!" He squeezed his eyes shut and shook his head. Don't yell, don't yell." He opened his eyes and sighed again. "What am I going to do with you?" His thoughts were interrupted when Muichiro abruptly shoved the stick into Yuichiro's hands. He looked down, uncomprehending, until his twin explained. Sword training! Well, sort of explained. But after a few seconds, Yuichiro understood what he was saying. You want me to practice mist-breathing. Muichiro nodded and smiled, a small smile, nowhere near the beaming grins common in the happier years of their life, but for just a moment he saw his human brother again. Yuichiro's vision blurred, and he realized there were tears in his eyes. He quickly blinked them away and nodded. Okay. Muichiro's smile grew wider. He leapt forward and embraced Yuichiro in a sudden hug. The older twin froze, his thoughts grinding to a halt and the stick almost falling out of his grip. Then Muichiro let go and ran over to the screen doors leading outside. He shoved them open and leapt out into the darkness, leaving Yuichiro still frozen where he stood. It was a few more seconds before he finally shook himself out of his daze and followed after his brother. The moon and stars shone overhead, providing enough light to be seen by. Muichiro stood out on the grass, evidently having found another thin tree branch to use as a sword. Muichiro moved to stand across from his twin, who raised his sword, with focus. Watch! He swung down in a perfect arc. Then he did it again and again. Watching his brother, Yuichiro felt something. The old sibling competitiveness that always reared its head whenever one twin was trying something new. No matter what it was, from fishing to chopping wood, both twins always needed to prove they were better than the other at it. It was the same here, too. He raised his own sword and swung it down, still amazed at how natural it felt. Could it be that swordsmanship really was in their blood? But it didn't matter, he decided. Talent would only go so far. He'd become a demon slayer and save Muichiro on his own merits. The two boys practiced side by side late into the night and then beyond, until the first light of day forced them back inside. Utterly exhausted, Yuichiro collapsed on his futon almost immediately. The last thing he felt before sleep claimed him was Muichiro lying down beside him, clawed hand gently clasping his own. And that is the end of chapter 4. I know this is a bit short. I'm cutting it off here because I want to keep this series for one chapter like apart, because it gets confusing if I stop doing that. What do I have to talk about today? So today's the last day of spring break. I am immensely sad about it. And I have honor band practice tomorrow. I forgot to bring my trumpet home over spring break, so it is at my school. It is at my school, and I forgot to bring it home, which means I didn't get to practice all spring break for our honor band, where we only get 3 group practices together, and the rest of it is done on your own. Fantastic. So yeah, that's not good. Anyway, I also have my first therapy session in like a month. On Wednesday, so that'll be nice. I literally haven't seen my therapist in a month. And then, more track meets, a bunch more track meets, so many track meets. Me and my girlfriend's anniversary is on Thursday, our 2-year anniversary. I'm gonna ask her if she's free at any point, either Thursday after track practice or anytime over the weekend, because I want to do something with her. We don't often get to do a lot of stuff, and because she's kind of always busy. But, you know. So, yeah, I think that's kind of all I have to talk about today. Not a lot. Spring break's ending. I'm sad. Oh, I posted another fanfic on Ao3. So, anybody who's interested in Danny Phantom stuff, it is a Danny Phantom fic. It is the first part of a multi-part series that I'm writing called Reality Hoppers, and it is called The King Gets Caught. It's called The King Gets Caught, and it is a part of Reality Hoppers. So, if you're interested in Danny Phantom, check it out. It's like 6,600 something words. I don't know. It's long. But, anyway, that's all for today. I Hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all have a good night or day wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!